Hello everybody from Plant Reviews UK. Today is the 1st of May and in this video I'm talking about Cypripedium formosanum, the Taiwan Lady Slipper Orchid. This is actually an orchid I bought 3 or 4 years ago it was on clearance. I bought it just for £9 and I was very lucky because this orchid usually has prices of about 25–30 pounds per pot. It was a pretty small pot. In the past years this orchid developed quite a lot. This is a very easy orchid, garden orchid, to grow and can form a big clump in a few years. The Formosa's Lady Slipper, or Taiwan's Lady Slipper, is called Cypripedium formosanum because it is endemic to Taiwan. That was formerly known as Formosa in Western literature. The species was described by Bunzo Hayata in 1916. The scientific name Cypripedium originates from the ancient Greek Kypros, that is a reference to the Greek goddess of beauty and love, Aphrodite, that is also known as Venus in Latin, obviously due to the Roman, and pedilon, that means sandal. So it is indeed the slipper orchid. As you can see, this is due to the fact that the lip of the orchid is transformed in this kind of inflated structure, and this is typical not only of Cypripediums, but also this kind of slipper-shaped flower is typical of other orchids, including many tropical species, like pedilon, for example, that belong to the family to the subfamily Cypripedioideae in the family Orchidaceae, in the orchid family. These orchids have a very peculiar flower structure because the three tepals look actually two, because the two lower tepals are actually fused in one, as you can see here, while the third tepal, the top one, is still a single tepal. The petals instead, the two lateral petals, as you can see, grow sideways, while the third petal it's transformed in the lip of the orchid that in Cypripediums makes this very, very peculiar structure that looks indeed like a slipper. The Cypripedium formosanum occurs, as I said, in Taiwan. It is endemic of this island and occurs in a variety of habitats, including mountain forests, but also open areas that are at about 2,000 to 3,000 meters of altitude. So it is definitely a temperate climate orchid and actually can be cultivated outdoors even in quite cold climates. Some Cypripediums actually are hardy even down to minus 20 degrees Celsius, but this one is not that hardy because, of course, Taiwan is not that far north. But other species in the genus Cypripedium can tolerate even colder conditions. There are also a couple of Cypripedium living in tropical areas in Asia and in Central America. Cypripedium formosanum is a terrestrial orchid and grows from rhizomes. Indeed, one of the options to buy this plant is actually buy the rhizomes and then you pot it. You pot them. However, I bought it, as I said, the plant already in the green was actually in full bloom when I bought it. The orchid has an annual cycle. This orchid has an annual cycle very similar to spring planting bulb, bulbs. So the rhizomes start developing leaves between late winter and early spring. The leaves are very peculiar in this orchid because they are fan shaped. You see they are kind of rounded and ribbed. They really look like a fan. The flower in Cypripedium formosanum is only, at least in my plant, is only produces only one flower per stem, and it is about 7 centimeters across, and it is pinkish white with this kind of red purplish maroon spots in the central area of the flower, as well as in the internal part of the lip, the slipper. The lip also has a kind of yellow stripe that probably you can see here in the internal part. The reason why this orchid is so structurally complex is because that this orchid attracts insects, usually bees, thanks to the sweet scent, but actually doesn't produce nectar. So basically, when the insect enters the slipper through this hole, basically tries to get out, but can't really get out from this area because basically it is attracted to the light, but the inner part of the slipper basically comes inward. So the only way that the insect can actually come out of the flower is sideways, and sideways basically the insect need to come very close to the sexual organs of the flower. That is the area where the stigma is, that is the white part here. Probably you can see it. I try to, it's a bit difficult with one hand, but probably I'm trying to focus. You can see it here, the white area that is just that is just behind this black dot. The white area is the female, this kind of whitish flat area is the area where the pollen is placed when the insect try to escape from this orifice, and the pollen of the orchid is actually this black structure, this black dot. I'm trying to get it out now, so I show you. So the pollen of the orchid, in orchids the pollen is actually enclosed in a structure called pollinia. This I think this is not I'm not too sure if it's active pollen, because usually actually pollen in orchids, pollen in orchids are yellow, and this one looks brown. Possibly this one is better, it's easier to get. I will try to get it out. And as you can see now, the pollinia, so the male sexual part of the orchid. And actually I left one of the pollinia inside here. So basically the insects leaves this yellow pollen, pollinium as I think it's called, in this flat area that is at the back of the column. I'm just again trying to show you here. I'm really ruining these flowers, but I really wanted to show you where the female reproductive organ is. So yes, it's here. Okay, probably you can see it better now. So this white area is the area where the pollen is collected, the one that I am touching now. This part. So, okay, I butchered this flower. As I butchered it, probably I can even open it up a bit more so you can actually see the internal structure. So you can see that the inner part of the flower has hairs. They are quite clear in the video, so the hairs basically help the insect to go through the orifice, so come up in this area and then leave the pollen in this structure. And you know what, I will as I have it still, this pollen on my index finger, I will try to pollinate the flower. So basically I put it this way and I leave this black pollen on the stigma. Okay. So I actually have a video of a bumblebee that was trapped in one slipper orchid flower, and you can actually see coming up of this hole, and it is quite cool. I will put the link in the video. If the flower is pollinated, it develops a seed pod that ripens in autumn. This is a seed pod that developed last year. You can see I didn't cut it, and basically between autumn and late autumn and early winter, the seed pod split open, and the very tiny seeds that look like dust are spread away by the wind, and they can travel very, very far. This happens in all orchids basically. Unfortunately, the seeds are very difficult to grow them as with conventional ways, like just with compost, and usually need laboratory conditions. After the flowers fade, the leaves will continue to photosynthesize as big green until mid-autumn, nearly to mid-autumn, and then they will die down in late autumn, early winter, when the plant goes dormant. This is a plant that is hardy outdoors in USDA 8 where I live, but is also hardy outdoors in USDA zones that are lower, like 7 and 6. The plant is, I cultivate this plant in a very well drained soil, using mostly grit and cut litter, and here you can see the mix I have. So it is I think this is just soil that happened to come by from the old pot, I believe, but you can see here that basically it is cat litter and grit, and this helps with the drainage. It's very important that in winter the plant is kept in a medium that doesn't hold too much moisture, otherwise the rhizome, sorry, will rot. In this way, instead, even keeping it outdoors, even if it rains, the water just goes through and the plant can survive. However, it is very important between spring and early autumn to keep the medium moist, because otherwise the roots are very sensitive to droughts, and this will harm the plant. Another important factor to consider in growing a Cypripedium formosanum is the temperature. It's very important. I keep Cypripedium formosanum in light shade, or this year I am trying, as you can see at the back, I have in other Cypripedium, I have this pot together with my other Cypripedium. I decided to give it a little bit more light, keeping it in partial shade, and so this part of the garden receives sun, full sun, only in the early morning hours, and then is just a very, very light shade. And I think this is a very good way to keep the Cypripediums, because you can see the leaves are not scorched. I had a few problems with slugs, so they ate some of the flowers of another Cypripedium, but you can see that the leaves are actually growing very, very well. This is a plant, as I said, very, very easy to cultivate, and as long as the medium is well drained and kept moist between spring and autumn. Sorry to repeat myself, but this is a point that I really want to make it clear. Some people recommend to keep Cypripediums dry in the winter, but again, I keep these pots outdoors all year round. Winter, snow, rain, hail, I never had any problem, and you can see, as you can see, they are really blooming every year and growing very well. The plant is definitely one of my favorite. It's great to have orchids in the garden. The only thing I recommend is to keep it in pots and ensure that the slugs don't get too much access to these plants, because especially the young shoots are very, very soaked after by slugs and snails. This is the reason also because I recommend grit and grit and cat litter, because usually slugs, I found, they don't like very much to hang around in this kind of mediums, and so far I had pretty good results in keeping slugs and snails away from my Cypripediums. I think I have told you everything about this beautiful species, Cypripedium formosanum. It is not impossible to find in garden centers, but if you buy it online, it's a lot easier. It's one of the most common orchids to find online for sale, and it is definitely one of the orchids that I like the most in my garden. As usual, if you have any questions, or you would like to ask me anything else about the cultivation of this plant, or of course all the other plants of my YouTube channel, please write your question in the comments down below, and I will try to answer as soon as possible.
As usual, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, would be great if you can please give a thumbs up, and if you like this video and the other videos on my channel, would be great if you can please subscribe to support my channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.